Good morning, readers. It's actually morning today, and I'm actually reading this on the day of because last night it had rained all day. And so I decided last night at 8 o'clock to go for a 3-mile jog walk. And a jog walk, let me explain what a jog walk is. Mrs. Scott cannot run 3 miles at one time. I can't. I know that there are people out there with superpowers who can. I cannot. So what I do is I jog for 2 minutes and then I walk for a minute and a half. And then I jog and then I walk. So you get it. So by the time I was done with my jog walk, I was sweaty, hot, and exhausted. So I went and took a bath. And then after my bath, I got in my bed and started reading my personal book and forgot all about your book. So there's the reason why I'm reading it in real time right now, with 11 minutes to go into our class meeting. So wrap it up, Mrs. Scott. So we're going to Uriel. What is Uriel, you ask? Well, let's find out. While there are individual living beings who embody the light, there are also some entire worlds that act as its protectors. Uriel is one such planet, a world with unparalleled natural beauty that serves as a beacon of the light to all living things. It was no accident that Uriel was the first place Dr. Alex Murray tessered to, and in their search for him, it was the first place Meg and the others visited as well. Wind prickled among the flowers on Uriel, ruffling their feathers. Giggling, the flowers leaned closer together. That's right, the flowers are giggling. In hushed tones, they chatted about the nearby river, who had been in a grouchy mood all day, flinging himself up against the rocks. I want you to really think, so when we talk about personification and how Miss Pedersen taught us how we give human characteristics to things, this is really kind of giving some human characteristics to this river. So when you think about a river on like a windy day or a bad weather day and the waves are real rough and it's, slamming itself up against the rocks, you kind of might think of that as a grouchy mood. Anyone would think a storm had poured itself onto him, but the last thunderstorm had been moons earlier. Uriel had moved into its peak summer season. The warmth of its sun soaked into the flower petals with not a hint of rain in the breeze. Dancing in delight, the flowers broke out in a riot of colors, splashes of orange, violet, and blue. No grumpy river could dampen their mood. On the outer edges of the field, a flower sent up a warning. Several somebodies were coming. The flowers turned to sense the newcomers. Shining light emoted from the 3 figures cresting the hill. The elements were back. Whirling bright yellow in joy, the flowers turned to welcome them. But why were they in such strange shapes? And who was that with them? 3 additional creatures moved beside them. Their stalks split in 2 at the bottom, and they had leaves that drooped down their sides. They looked like the other odd visitor the flowers just had. But where that one had bristles all over his face, these ones had fuzz popping out of the tops of their heads. The muted drab colors of their petals, leaves, and stems made the flowers sad. Were they so full of despair that they couldn't show joy? One of the unknown figures raced toward them, its leaves outspread, flushing in purple in alarm. The flowers plucked themselves up and flew backwards. A figure stopped, its face turned up toward them, and part of it opening into the circle. Having put enough distance between themselves and the figure, the flowers drifted back to the rich soil, digging their roots in, yet coiled and ready to spring out again if needed. What could these creatures want? Where had they come from? Didn't they know proper etiquette? One of the elements, cloaked in a bizarre shape, nudged the brash intruder closer, buzzing in her ear. The flowers led away. "Hello," the oldest element waved, her aura flashing green in greeting, a sign of peace. Walking forward, I've got to just check. There we go. Yep. All right, I've got 6 more minutes. Walking forward, the youngest tilted her head to hear their concerns. With a pulse of colors, the flower asked, "Are these creatures friends of yours?" The elements assured them that they were, and nodded in understanding when the bloom shivered in relief. They'd heard rumors of places where plants were not being treated gently, where large plates crushed petals between them, and sharp blades sheared the stems in half. The elemental brushed gently along a flower's face, and the whole pack flittered bright pink in joy as a rush of energy bolted through the flower, down to the ground, and up the surrounding stems. The curly-topped figure edged closer and held something out to them. What was it? Should they go see? They wouldn't know unless some of them ventured over. After a heated exchange, several of the flowers I'm stumping on this one. Give me a second to figure it out. After a heated exchange, several of the flowers lifted up and fluttered closer. The shiny object on the creature's appendage glinted in the light. They couldn't understand what it intended. A flood of sickly gray seeped from the figure. Well, if she was confused and full of doubt, they certainly couldn't help. Shrugging, the flowers leapt into the air and spun down the valley, seeking warmer and less depressing pastures. Within a few moments, the flowers were preoccupied with figuring out which trees were casting too much shade and jostling one another for the best spots. As soon as they were settled, they chattered at the trees and river about the strange beings and the elements they had brought with them, and how uncouth they had been, rushing about and gesturing, stamping the ground carelessly. From where they'd left the creatures, a fiery blast of longing beamed into the sky. The planet responded, all the rocks, rivers, and plants singing. The flowers lifted their faces to the sky and added their voices in the chorus, blending perfectly into the harmony of Uriel. And we're going to stop right there today because we only have a few minutes until our morning meeting. That chapter was so different than the other ones because we're changing perspective yet again. Now we're thinking about the perspective of these singing flowers on a different planet. But it has me wondering, when it's talking about this creature that's oozing gray, I wonder if they're kind of talking about Meg, because she's, in such a kind of foul mood because just life for her right now is just not that great. So I guess we're going to have to figure out soon. All right, kiddos. That's it for chapter 10 today, and I'll see you in a few minutes.